Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another live stream here on the channel. Hopefully everyone is having a fantastic Thursday thus far. Glad to have you guys all in here for another live stream. There's a lot of people in here, but I'm going to try to do it. Let's try to do it today. Welcome Jake, JCP. We also have Bro in here. Caleb. Let's see. Infinite. Ben. I'll go down a little bit more here. Justin, Kaylee, Rain Man, Haley, John, Johnny, ATR Media. Let's see here. Tri-State Rails. Glad to see you guys all in here. Easton. Glad to see everyone in the chat. Welcome everyone who is watching and not chatting, or if you are just watching in the background. Glad to have you here. Hopefully, like I said, you're having a fantastic Thursday. And Jefferson, welcome to the stream. Proxy, welcome to the stream as well. Glad to see you guys in here. Let's switch on over. Ooh, camera might be a little bit low. It's from cleaning my monitors. I cleaned a lot of stuff over the last week or two, so just little adjustments that I have to make to the stream, make sure it's back to normal like it was a month ago. But all right. Man, oh my goodness. If you've been paying attention to the weather world, I can't even make out what this event is because so many people are all over the place. I don't know what to think about this upcoming event. So we're going to dive into it together and figure out what's going to happen. All I know is I have seen an absurd amount of hype over this. I've seen people even talking about the potential for a high risk on Tuesday when we are still at a slight risk for Tuesday. So just a lot of hype, a lot of stuff that is very, very difficult to tune out, especially if you are one who is you have very big problems with storm anxiety. It's very difficult to tune out all that noise. There's a lot of people hyping this upcoming severe weather setup. It is, unfortunately, the most active severe weather setup that we have seen ever since last July, maybe even ever since May last year. Just from the looks on the model runs and the outlooks the SPC is saying, as well as the wording that they've put in their outlooks, it does look like it's the most active stretch we've seen in roughly 9 to 11 months. So doesn't mean it's going to be the worst outbreak, since July or the worst outbreak since May. It just means we have like the most active days. We have like 5 slight risks for severe weather. But it doesn't mean that we're going to be getting like a high risk or an EF5 tornado like what we had, last year in July and last year in April. Doesn't mean that. But there is certainly the potential for significant severe weather for multiple days in a row. So, yeah, we have today that is kind of snuck up on us here. I haven't really mentioned it anywhere, but, for my personal outlooks, because I do outlooks, but, behind the scenes, I've been issuing my own outlooks, which I probably should start putting, now that I think of it, I should probably start putting it in the Discord server in the hypothetical area, because that would probably do really good. That way I can hold myself accountable if they're performing well or not. But yeah, this was definitely a surprise to some people in the weather community, but I saw this, I believe, yesterday morning. It started appearing up on our models that we would have a chance for a supercell or two to produce some large hail. But we do have a risk for tornadoes today. We could even see a brief strong tornado. We're not looking at anything very high end today. Just if a tornado does touch down today, we have that opportunity to see its peak intensity up to an EF2. So a brief tornado or two, maybe even a brief strong tornado, can't be ruled out. Damaging winds will be one of our main issues today, 60 to 70 mile an hour wind gusts. And then our biggest problem is large hail. Any supercells that can latch onto a boundary or any supercells that can stay discrete enough will have that opportunity to produce large hail upwards of 2.5 inches in diameter or so. Maybe even hailstones a little bit greater than 2.5 inches in diameter. But it all comes down to if we see a supercell that is discrete near a boundary or just simply discrete all on its own. But it's not a very high end day. It's just a conditional day. If a supercell can form, it has the potential to produce significant hail, significant winds, and maybe a brief tornado, and possibly even a brief strong tornado. So it is a day to be weather aware, but not a day where we're anticipating like an upper echelon event or anything like that. Tomorrow is Friday, and Friday is kind of the in-between day. That's kind of the recovery day, because we're going to be experiencing big severe weather today, like I said, in the form of probably significant hail. And then tomorrow, we really aren't expecting a whole lot. Some isolated rain showers could produce heavy downbursts, and those downbursts could actually lead to potentially microbursts. And thus we have the potential for some damaging winds tomorrow. And I think that's it, right? 5% wind. Okay, they do have a 5% hail, but no tornado threat. So I think damaging winds will be the biggest hazard, 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts possible. And I wouldn't rule out a hailstone up to like 2 inches in diameter. But it's nothing. Tomorrow will be pretty much nothing, honestly. We might just see a severe storm or two. The timing for today, for those wondering, because I didn't go over that, it should be late this evening. We're really looking at, probably about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock Eastern. These storms should start to fire up near Nebraska. And if any can be discrete to semi-discrete, which the HRRR really isn't showing any of that. We could see some isolated very large hail up to 2.5, maybe up to 3 inches in diameter. But the only way we see up to like 3-inch hail today is if a supercell can be completely discrete and on its own and taking up that environment. If we do see a clustering mess like what the HRRR says here at 10 o'clock tonight, there's a very high likelihood we'll only see 1 to 1.5 inch hail. So we really need that semi-discrete supercell or fully discrete supercell. That's why today's tornado risk is pretty conditional, and the hail risk, the very large hail risk, is also pretty conditional. So the main event today is from 7 p.m. to about 11 p.m. Eastern. And then tomorrow, like I said, a few of these storms may be able to put down some very heavy rain, and that could lead to potentially microburst, potentially 50, 60 mile an hour wind gusts with some of these storms tomorrow, late tomorrow afternoon. Probably around supper time these will fire, and we can't rule out up to about an inch, maybe 1.5 inch hail, if these storms can maintain and stay semi-discrete. But I highly doubt we'll be dealing with a tornado threat tomorrow. We'll take a look at Supercell Composite just to see. And yeah, really no big numbers here. Just the risk for mainly wind and hail. You can never completely rule out a tornado. I just don't think it's that likely. We'll check on this. Yeah, a little bit of ingredients in northeastern Oklahoma, but I don't think we're going to see a tornado tomorrow. Just, we won't fully rule it out. Rule it out. Welcome, Caleb. Glad to see you here. I've heard more hype about the severe weather. Like I said, the hype is absurd. The hype is absurd. And it's not, you guys probably know more than me because I don't really watch other weather YouTubers, to be honest with you. But I haven't seen an insane amount of hype on YouTube. It's been Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Those are the platforms where I've seen the absurd amount of hype, especially Twitter. But not so much on YouTube. I mean, you always have the big thumbnails, of course, but I mean, when you're looking at 50-some million people under the gun for severe weather, those huge thumbnails highlighting half the U.S. Are warranted because, again, we can't look at population here, but it's probably like 50-some million people, if I had to imagine, that are under the gun for severe weather. A lot of people. That is for sure. All right, let's get into the big days now. So this is day 3. This is our first big day, potentially big day for severe weather. And it really doesn't look that impressive to me, to be honest with you. I wouldn't rule out a brief tornado and 60 to 65 mile an hour wind gust. The main threat on Saturday is probably going to be large hail. If we can get enough instability in eastern New Mexico, western Texas would be the area to watch. Right in here would be the area to watch for that main hail threat. But it honestly doesn't really look very impressive to me. And then there is another area I would watch out here towards Nebraska and Iowa for the potential of severe weather as well, right near the northern extent of the warm sector. So those are the two areas I'm watching, but really neither of them look that significant. Other than the opportunity for some isolated significant hail in eastern New Mexico, western Texas on Saturday, if there's enough CAPE, which is potentially going to be a problem. We'll go over that in a bit. Some models have it being a problem. Other models say there's no problem at all. And then there's day 4. This is Sunday. Sunday, I don't know. Sunday, I don't know. So we're going to go ahead and check what Sunday looks like. Because I don't want to say anything that is completely false information here. From what I've seen, it looks like Sunday may have downtrended and Monday and Tuesday have uptrended. Which, I mean, is that a dry line right there? Ooh, you got a nice dry line. So Sunday is going to be probably conditional. I'd have to imagine. What's the, ooh. Not the worst wind shear. Supercell Composite might be underdoing the environment here. Let me take a sounding. Like right here. But yeah, I'm guessing Sunday's downtrended. I mean, based on this, from what I saw with my last video, Monday was supposed to be the main event. And yeah, like I said, Supercell Composite probably underdoing this environment quite substantially. Supercell Composite only had what, like a 2 and a 3. Surface to 1 kilometer SRH is almost 300. Surface to 3 is over 350. Almost 2,000 CAPE. Of course, that number of dew points with low 70 temperatures. Maybe not the strongest veering here. These don't look like very strong veering in the mid-levels. A lot of veering in the lower levels. Not a lot in the mid-levels. And then, just your continuation of those wind barbs in the upper levels. So that could be what may limit a tornado threat on that dry line. But I don't think that's going to be a giant issue here. I'm not too sure why the GFS is probably underdoing that environment on Supercell Composite. Let me look at lower level jet. Yeah, good lower level jet. So once that lower level jet ramps up later in the evening, that will probably help a bit more with that mid-level veering. Is there a shortwave that comes by? Let me check 700 millibar. There is, right there. Right here is a shortwave. Look at that. there's a shortwave. The 03Z Monday morning. Technically, that's still Sunday night. That's 11 p.m. Sunday, Eastern time. The reason how I was able to see if there was a shortwave there is because I saw the lower level response. Look at that lower level response, how it went from not a lot to getting pretty strong lower level response. That's like 50 knots there. And maybe even up to 55, 60 knot jet stream in southern Kansas. So depending on that shortwave could initiate significant severe weather, or the dry line could simply ignite itself. Multiple things can ignite that dry line, but the number one thing would definitely be that shortwave in the overnight hours. So Sunday looks conditional to me. I'm not very worried about Sunday. I will check another product real quick. Sunday's day 5. Sunday's day 4 now. So that's highlighting the product I have on the other monitor here. That's highlighting Iowa. Let's look at Iowa here. So is that a little sneaky trough up there? Look at that little sneaky shortwave up here too. So you got a shortwave here, and a shortwave back here. So you've got three shortwaves. This one isn't going to matter much. This one could do something sneaky in Iowa. That's what the CSU Severe is picking up on. So, yeah, watch for that. That would be a better... that would be a more guarantee for thunderstorms, but the problem is you don't have a lot of ingredients up there. You don't have a lot of wind shear, and I bet moisture is going to be lacking. Yeah, moisture is lacking up there. So that definitely would be more of a thunderstorm threat. Like, you'd have a better chance for storms to fire. However, not as good of an environment. So here's my take on things briefly, real quick. I think they should expand that slight risk further to the north. If not, we'll at least have a marginal up here. So I think severe storms are going to be likely back up in this area with a lower tornado threat, because you're probably going to be more elevated due to those lower amounts of moisture. And then to the south, back into southern Kansas, western Oklahoma, that's where your dry line could initiate. If your dry line initiates, you would be looking at probably a cluster to semi-discrete supercells firing in a very favorable environment, maybe a little lack of mid-level veering, but definitely would be capable of all hazards, including the potential for a strong tornado Sunday in western Oklahoma, if that dry line can initiate. And let's take a look at your... It looks like your all your wind barbs are pointed from south to north, so that would definitely mean a more clustered mode, even if we look at the surface. It's hard to see because they're very high up on those temperatures too. But it looks like if we go back to the dew points, I just want to make sure I'm getting this right. I don't want to, like I said, I want to make sure I'm getting the right information out here, because I haven't had a great look at these models. Yeah, it looks like your wind barbs are going to be positioned like this, off the dry line. So what that means is quick upscale growth. We're not looking at if supercells fire, they're going to be fully discrete and all by themselves. Maybe, since you don't have a lot of forcing, a few supercells could fire, but the problem is things could overconvect very quickly. Things would be able to overconvect very quickly if storms do fire, because they are angled, those wind barbs angled from southwest to northeast, meaning that they're going to ride the, kind of follow that dry line to the northeast and grow upscale quickly. Whereas if your wind barbs were from west to east, supercells would be able to just move with that dry line to the east and stay completely discrete all by themselves. If we manage to see storms fire, they're likely going to be semi-discrete to clustered. Damaging winds, large hail, and a tornado would all be possible. Again, wouldn't rule out a strong tornado here, but we'll have to wait for the CAM models. Ooh, I know actually the NAM should be in range now. Yeah, and immediately an area that catches my eye is southern Kansas. South central Kansas is catching my eye on that. Well, what do you know? That's where the NAM has the best environment. Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with Supercell Composite on that. Is your shortwave quicker? Nope, your shortwave is still back here across the looks like it's still across the northeastern four corners. Yeah, it looks like it's still like up in Wyoming, Colorado, getting to New Mexico, western Texas. Very sharp dry line though. Does anything initiate? There you go. See, if things do initiate, clustered to semi-discrete there. If things do fire. And this does fire along the dry line in western Oklahoma. And if you can get a semi-discrete supercell here, let's see what this shows. Not as big of an issue with the veering in the mid-level. Actually, bigger issue with the veering in the lower level here. You only got 125 surface to 1 kilometer SRH. 8.4 lapse rate. So immediately when lapse rates are 8 plus, the first thing I want to look at, right, when I see those 8 plus lapse rates, temperature dew point spread. 62 dew points, 79 temperatures. That tells me right off the bat these storms are probably going to be more elevated. So large hail, likely going to be a huge issue with that. If supercells are semi-discrete, damaging winds, and a brief tornado, all possible. But that strong tornado threat would be more conditional because those storms are more elevated. But look at all the analogs here. The analogs are jam-packed with supercell analogs and severe hail analogs. So we'll have to see when our cams get closer, we start getting closer to this event, if these storms indeed do initiate clustered. But definitely, I can tell you this, your temperatures are not going to stay at 83 throughout the whole night, right? They're going to be going down. So I would say you're probably going to get into the lower 70s by 03Z Monday. So Sunday, very late Sunday evening into the early overnight hours, if storms are indeed fired by then and you have semi-discrete supercells, I could see a strong tornado threat down there in western Oklahoma, from central Kansas down to western Oklahoma. And then you could see those storms also firing up in Minnesota, actually not firing much in Minnesota. I'm shocked by that. I was for sure those were going to fire. The GFS fires them fairly well. Yeah, the GFS does fire them fairly well there. But like I said, not a great environment. So I'm surprised the NAM doesn't actually fire anything here. Oh, it's because it stays capped. It's because it stays completely capped on the NAM, and the GFS, it doesn't stay completely capped. Well, that will do it for you. Fully capped environment. So, yeah, maybe hold on that extension. Maybe the SPC is onto something by not extending that slight risk all the way up into Minnesota just yet. Yeah, definitely want to wait to see if cams end up initiating up there. But, yeah, big difference between the NAM and the GFS. The GFS, a sharper shortwave. The NAM, nearly zonal flow. It's nearly zonal flow up here on the NAM. So not nearly as good of an initiating 500 millibar from the NAM compared to the GFS. But yeah, those are the two areas I'm most interested in. Definitely most interested in that dry line from western Oklahoma through central Kansas. And then also want to see if the cap lifts back up there into Minnesota, northwestern Iowa. But I think we could be looking at an enhanced in western Oklahoma, probably for hail. If we get an increased amount of confidence with those cams initiating. I doubt it will be a day 3 enhanced though, but you never know. Sometimes the SPC surprises you. All right, let's go ahead and pull this on out to Monday now. So that was a bunch of yapping on Sunday. Let's talk about Monday now. And before I do that, so this is Sunday's risk, like I showed you guys from the SPC. Definitely needs to go more north. Definitely should go more north into Kansas for sure. But I don't know about all the way up to Minnesota just yet. Definitely a question on the capping up there. But that slight definitely needs to be extended at least into northern Kansas for Sunday. And then Monday, we got hail reported west of Omaha right now. When was this? 6 minutes ago. 0.75 inch hail northwest of Omaha, Nebraska. But there you go. There is Monday's risk for severe weather. And this is one of our first outbreak potential days here. But there is a lot of uncertainty on it. That is for sure. There's a bunch of uncertainty on Monday because we don't know how fast this trough is going to eject. The faster the trough is, the higher the severe threat's going to be on Monday. The slower the trough is, the higher the severe threat will be on Tuesday and Wednesday. So the GFS seems like it's a little bit slow. Maybe just a little bit slow, not like a huge difference there. And this shows for Monday. Let's check our environment. Plenty of CAPE, a lot of CAPE, that's for sure. Supercell composites probably highest for that capping's lifted in northwestern Missouri. And nothing fires. Dew points. Man, this, yeah. Yeah, I see why people are talking about Tuesday being a moderate type day. But I've seen actually a lot of people start talking about a high risk for Tuesday. If this were to happen, Lord have mercy. Woo-wee. That would be in eastern Kansas, western Missouri, southwest Iowa for that. But even then, your CAPE falls off rapidly, but that's probably some stupid GFS bias, to be honest with you. GFS is never great with CAPE. But, yeah, like I said, a bunch of people on Twitter calling that potentially a high-risk type of event for Tuesday. But it comes down to a lot of things. One of the biggest things is probably how Monday performs. Because if Monday doesn't fire, nothing happens on Monday, well, you're probably still going to have an absurd amount of moisture left over. So if nothing happens Monday, all that moisture that's just sitting there in the plains gets transitioned completely over into Tuesday. And my word, you are up to the high 60s here, 68-degree dew points here, all the way up into Illinois and maybe southern Wisconsin on Tuesday. Gracious. The GFS typically has a progression biased on the 500 millibar. So sometimes it will overdo environments if you have a big trough. But it doesn't seem like it's overdoing anything right now. The European and the GFS are very close to in alignment. The Euro a little bit slower, which arguably would make the outbreak threat considerably higher. And the GFS a little bit faster, which still would make the outbreak threat decently high. And the 12Z, very slow. So if you look at the difference, the 06Z was way more in alignment. I don't know what the 12Z is doing. The 12Z, you could toss that in the garbage, it looks like, right? Yeah, you toss the 12Z in the garbage. The 12Z GFS is garbage. That is not a good model. Because your Canadian is completely different from your GFS, and the Euro and the Canadian are close to an agreement. Big difference between the Euro and the Canadian. The Canadian has a more closed 500 millibar low and a stronger trough. The Canadian shows a full-on outbreak. Huge, gracious outbreak. Gracious day type of outbreak right there. That would be absurd. As long as your temperatures don't rise too high in the midday. That would be a big-time severe threat all the way from northern Oklahoma up into northern Iowa, southern Minnesota. So, yeah, disregard. I'd say fully disregard the 12Z GFS because look at the difference between the 06Z and the 12Z. I mean, that is a big shift. And then the Euro 06Z looks like it's starting to get in better agreement. So our models have not handled this well because the Euro 00Z was slow. The Euro 06Z, I agree with more. The GFS 06Z, I agree with. The 12Z GFS, I disagree with. The 12Z Canadian, I agree with. The 0Z Canadian, actually, looks like the Canadian is probably the most consistent model run. Yeah, look at that. The last 4 runs, 1, 2, 3, 4. The last 4 runs of the Canadian have been at least somewhat consistent on where the greatest 500 millibar wind speeds is, really over Kansas and Nebraska at 18Z on Tuesday. So I think the 06Z Euro is way more accurate than the 00Z. And I haven't seen the 12Z. Unfortunately, can't show y'all this. Does Weatherwise have it? I actually haven't looked. I don't think it does. I don't know if this is the Euro. I think this actually is the Euro. Yeah, this is the Euro right here. But it's very hard to read because it's on a completely different Jetstream type of map there. I'm used to Call of DuPage Jetstream. That's what I'm used to. But it looks like the 12Z Euro. We go back to the 06Z here. Oh, okay. No, that's the 12Z from yesterday. It looks like it's almost the same. Looks like the 12Z is a little bit faster. So the 12Z Euro looks like it's starting to get in more alignment with the GFS. 06Z at least. So, not very confident on that trough. That trough is all over the place on these models, but regardless, I think we're looking at a big severe weather event for Tuesday. But you gotta, I think the GFS 12Z, again, just to go over this, just so you know the best model, I think the 12Z GFS is too fast. The 06Z GFS is probably very close to what may actually happen. The Euro 06Zs, I agree with too. And then the Canadian 12Z. So really just the 12Z GFS looks to be the outlier here. What about the GEFS? So this is the ensembles from the GFS model run. And I want to go up here and see how many of them. That's a lot of different scenarios for Tuesday. That is a lot of different scenarios. They are vastly different. They are vastly different. So, see, now I'm thinking we probably got to take into account the 12Z GFS too, because they're also vastly different. All of them have severe weather, and most of them have the chance for significant severe weather. But that's a whole lot of uncertainty. So, my take here on Tuesday, I would expect a pretty significant severe weather event. Tuesday probably going to end up being the biggest day for severe weather. The main area to watch is probably going to be from central Oklahoma all the way up into Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, and then back up into Minnesota, Wisconsin, and then back down into Kansas and Oklahoma. That is probably the main general region to watch for the best chance of severe weather on Tuesday. Northern extent, definitely going to be considering how fast that trough is. The faster the trough is, in this case, you could see portrayed by the 12Z GFS, instability goes up into northern Wisconsin on the 12Z GFS, whereas compared to the 06Z European, the 1000 Cape, the blue you see here, doesn't get but to about central Wisconsin. So if the trough is quicker, that Cape can get more into Wisconsin and Missouri, or rather more into Wisconsin and Minnesota. But if that trough is a bit slower, that will probably result in the instability not being as far north. So, yeah, I think that's the main area to watch here. I don't know much about hazards, but I could tell you we're at least looking at 60 to 70 mile an hour winds, 1 to 2 inch hail, and a few tornadoes all being possible, and most likely 1 or 2 strong tornadoes being possible. I'm pretty confident with that. Anything more than that, like talking about an intense tornado being possible, or violent tornadoes being possible, or very large hail, or 80 plus mile an hour winds, I don't know about those upper echelon significant hazards yet. There's a lot of uncertainty on that. That is, everything's going to come down to the timing of that trough. Because if the trough's too fast, what it could do is it could wipe out the warm sector, which I think, I mean, the GFS is just a horrible model run. But yeah, if the trough is too fast, it can wipe out that warm sector before we hit our peak time frame for severe weather. Big difference on where the instability is here on the GFS and the Euro. The Euro would result in a big time severe weather threat, upper echelon severe weather threat. Whereas the GFS would still result in significant severe weather, but not nearly as upper echelon as what the Euro has. And then Wednesday, I saw someone say something about the SPC prematurely pulling the trigger on day 7. And I'd have to agree with you on that. Because there is a ginormous amount of uncertainty amongst our model runs on what's going to happen on with the trough on Tuesday. And how Tuesday evolves will result in whatever happens on Wednesday. Wednesday, we could have the chance for some severe weather in Texas, or we could have the chance for severe weather in New York and Ohio. So I do think that was a very premature pull by the SPC to highlight an area from Texas to southern Wisconsin. I have to disagree with pulling that at the moment. I'm pretty shocked that they pulled that day 7 risk. They obviously have more confidence in severe weather occurring than I do on our day 7 outlook, but you can see here is CSU severe, which is another outlook thing I like to look at. It's kind of like if models put out an outlook. You can kind of think of it that way. And I believe it's based mainly on the GEFS ensembles, although I'm not for certain. And you can see that is highlighting this risk for severe weather in New York, and then maybe an isolated severe weather risk in Texas. And when you compare that to the SPC, it looks like it's 2 completely different days. It looks like it's completely different on both of these outlooks. So the only way how this verifies, to be honest with you, the only way how this verifies on the day 7 risk is if our trough is exponentially slower, which is what the 12Z GFS has. And even then with our trough being that slow, even then the GFS still really highlights 2 areas for severe weather. And if your trough is what I think it will be, like this, you could see how that does highlight a little bit better with what the SPC is saying. So maybe a slower trough actually would favor more severe weather. Looks like that would be the case. I take that back. A faster trough would actually result in severe weather being limited to mainly the New England states and Texas, whereas a slower trough would result in a more widespread severe weather threat here. Yeah, and you can see there's just not a lot of confidence in that. This is the GEFS ensembles on 06Z, which had that slower trough progression. And you could see not really in the high percentile here for 1,000 instability. Roughly a 25% chance for 1,000 CAPE in Oklahoma on Wednesday. So for their outlook, I don't know if it's worth a slight risk down here in Texas and Louisiana, but I do agree that we'll have an opportunity for severe weather in Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas for Wednesday. But the northern part, this part, is what I'm most uncertain on. because this part could be, it could be up here into Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, or it could even be as far as like Vermont, New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. But regardless, I do think we'll have the chance for severe weather somewhere here in the southern plains into the western Dixie Alley area. Oh, yeah, this is going to change. They'll change this for sure. But I don't know. Personal opinion, I think they pulled that day 7 risk a little bit prematurely because I don't see that amount of confidence. But the SPC does, so shoot. Maybe the SPC is going to take a huge win here. It wouldn't be the first time. Definitely wouldn't be the first time. Hello, Lucy. What am I looking at for this coming week? A lot of uncertainty. That's for sure. I don't think you're in the primary outbreak threat for this week. Wednesday, according to the SPC, Wednesday is going to be your main day to watch for severe weather, but that's only if our trough is slow. Only if our trough is slow will you actually end up with that risk for severe weather portrayed by the 06ZGFS and also what the SPC is saying. So I wouldn't expect anything significant right now. I would be watching it closely because, you know, if our trough slows down, Wednesday's going to be a big risk for you. If our trough speeds up, actually would be watching Tuesday. So it just depends. And then if our trough speeds up even more, it's going to skip you. You know, you'd have a big severe threat, say like out here on Tuesday, you'd have a big severe weather threat, and then Wednesday it would be up in here and then down in here. So there's a chance it just fully skips you because of nocturnal hours. But I would watch it for sure. It's definitely something to watch for you. Yeah, but really looks like the GEFS is confident. Lord have mercy. As maximum supercell composite, I gave myself a jump scare on that one. The GEFS is very confident on Monday being our main risk, actually. The biggest problem with that is I don't think our trough's going to arrive in time. You know, you're not going to have a lot of notable flow here. So you've got that conditional risk for all significant hazards in Oklahoma into Kansas, and then that risk for isolated severe weather up here in Missouri with that shortwave. But your main forcing for ascent is still back here in the western four corners. New Mexico, your main risk is probably going to be Saturday for eastern New Mexico. I don't think you're under the gun for anything other than Saturday. Yeah, you see Saturday, eastern New Mexico is really the main area to watch in the brown and the yellow. I do think this will shift a little bit further to the northwest. That comes down to the instability here. Depends on how far west our cape gets. So you could see on the GFS, your cape gets to roughly where that marginal risk is in eastern New Mexico. But I think the NAM has it more west, yeah. So like if the NAM is correct, that risk would be a little bit further to the northwest. Main risk is definitely hail out there in New Mexico. Big uptrends on the 18Z NAM for Sunday, instability-wise. Big uptrends, looks like on that. What about the trough, though? That's what I'm more concerned about. Looks like the trough didn't change much. Maybe a little weaker. Looks like it's a little bit weaker on the new NAM. The lower level jet definitely weaker. So a few small changes here. What about moisture? Moisture looks, there's some minor changes here and there, but I don't see anything major that's going to like shift Sunday's threat or anything like that. But I am curious now to see if it initiates, which it looks like it's going to. Bit of morning convection on Sunday. Interesting. But it should initiate on this dry line somewhere between central Kansas down to western Oklahoma. Again, that's our conditional significant hazards right there. But I think it's going to initiate. Yep, there you go. Even actually into northern Kansas. Look at that. Even into southern Nebraska, actually. Even initiating into southern Nebraska on that. Look at that. Oh, the RFSA? I haven't looked at that. I forgot about that. Why are we still taking that to heart in 2026? Has it not shown you how bad of a model run it is and we are still looking at it? We'll pull it on out, but I don't really care about what the RFSA has to say. It definitely shows a big, severe threat, though, on Monday. Or not Monday, my bad, Saturday. Saturday definitely shows a big, severe weather threat in western Texas, eastern New Mexico. Widespread, large hail, damaging winds. Wouldn't rule out a tornado, but Saturday, likely not going to have much of a tornado threat. And then that wipes through the warm sector Sunday morning. Now, I want to see the dry line. It's not going to let me see the dry line. Man. So, yeah, this doesn't go far enough out to where I can see the full dry line. Lord have mercy. Golly. Dang. Now that's a lot of cape. Wow, that's a lot of 0 to 3 kilometer SRH across like all of Oklahoma. Yeah, it does initiate on the dry line, but actually the dry line in Texas, not the dry line in Oklahoma. It looks like, actually, no, that is probably, I don't know what it does, but it has something right in here. I don't know what this is, if it's some sort of like boundary or something left over by morning convection. Because this is the main dry line's actually back here into Kansas, western Kansas, far western Oklahoma, and Texas. So these storms on the RFSA are initiating off of what I'd assume is some sort of either remnant boundary or possibly a front. And that helps firestorms here in Texas and Oklahoma, and then some random storms northwest of Fort Worth, because why not? Because the RFSA just feels like it. And then as fast as those things form, they die. Like, what? Nothing? Supercells? Dead. Huh? Yeah. Yeah, people will tell me that this is way better than the NAM 3K and the HRRR. I literally think this model run is one of the worst model runs. Like, when it nails a severe weather event, it nails it. But outside of that, it is absolutely garbage. And it's insane how bad it is. But, I don't know. We got the 500 millibar. This is 700. I can't tell because I am garbage at reading the wind speeds on WeatherWise. But I mean, you have some sort of enhanced flow at 700 millibar right there. And that has some lower level response in front of it. But yeah, I'm not too sure what the RFSA is doing here. Like I said, it sets up some sort of boundary there. Let me look at the temperatures, see if there's a clear difference. Nope, no clear difference here. This is 6 o'clock. And that's where it had that weird type of like boundary setting up over Oklahoma and Texas or front or whatever it is. Yeah, and it's not very clear on temperatures here, so I highly, highly doubt it's like a cold front or a warm front. My only guess is like a giant remnant outflow boundary. But yeah, like left over from all this junk in here. But that would be very strange, so no other model run shows that, because no other model run is as dumb as the RFSA. So, I mean, if we go to the GFS, which is arguably the worst model run, according to most, I mean, that has a great dry line in an open warm sector. There's no awkward, huge outflow boundary or whatever it is in Oklahoma and Texas. Euro doesn't have it. Canadian doesn't have it. NAM doesn't go out that... Actually, the NAM does go out that far, and it doesn't have it. Just the good old RRFSA. What are the chances we see a red Sharpie in the next coming days, or even a pink Sharpie? What day, what hazard? Gracious, Caleb. What do you think, I'm God? Red Sharpie, I think there's a pretty good chance we see a red Sharpie. Arguably, even 2 of them. If our trough can time correctly. A pink Sharpie, that would definitely only be on one day. I can tell you that. And the only way that happens is if Monday is a full-on bust and Tuesday goes crazy. So it wouldn't surprise me if we get a moderate on Monday or Tuesday. The only way we see a high risk, in my opinion, is if Monday fully downtrends a lot and that environment transitions over to Tuesday. And then Tuesday has that good trough that, like, what the Euro shows. Where the Euro shows a strong, large, strong, negatively tilted trough. Not a closed low, though, which could create some issues. With a large area forcing for ascent over the open warm sector. With a decent amount of moisture. But even then, you can see there's a little lack of moisture that could be an issue right here. So, I mean, this one right here, the Canadian for Tuesday, this is a high-risk setup. Most likely, this would be a high-risk setup. This would most likely be a high-risk caliber setup on the Canadian for Tuesday. But then you have other model runs that show Tuesday being a slop fest, like the GFS. So, I don't know. I couldn't give you like an exact probability because I feel like that's just not a good idea to do. But a moderate is definitely possible for Monday and Tuesday. Okay, lucky, gracious day, my guy. I'll look at my text. My word. It's like 50-50. Definitely not 50-50. I don't think a high risk is 50-50. Now, moderate, yeah, I could agree with that. I could agree that a moderate is like 50-50 at this point. Phone warning? Nah, he ain't joining. 50-50 moderate. Okay, yeah, I see that, yeah. I agree with that. I thought you were saying 50-50 to a high risk. I'm like, eh. Now, if our trough trends better here, yeah, I could see a 50-50 high risk, but, I mean, we're far out. We are far out. I think some people still forget that we are 126 hours out, and that this trough, if we bring it back, this trough right now is located off of California. This is the trough that people are saying could bring a high risk on Tuesday. I saw a lot of people saying it's probably going to go high risk for Tuesday. And this thing is still off the coast of California, so... Yeah, and then it merges with our main trough. I didn't even realize that. Our main trough, our trough that's actually... This is just a trough that's sitting here in California, and that's what's going to bring us our flow on Saturday. But it's actually this trough that's bringing our main severe weather for Monday and Tuesday. That swings in, merges with our first trough Sunday morning. And then Sunday you have that conditional risk in western Oklahoma, western Oklahoma, central Kansas for that conditional risk on Sunday. And then troughs well merged by the time you get into Monday. So Monday also has a conditional risk there. Probably in much of the same spots. And then Tuesday should be your big day. I actually forgot where. Let's see here. Yeah, so Sunday's at conditional risk in western Oklahoma, central Kansas. And then Monday... let's see. I think Monday's risk is actually more north. Yeah, Monday's where the GFS doesn't fire anything. So this is for Sunday, and like I said, Sunday, that risk in western Oklahoma, central Kansas, right there. And CSU does paint the picture that we'll see severe weather from that shortwave back up into the north central U.S. And then Monday, CSU not confident in that conditional risk firing anything in Kansas or Oklahoma, whereas the SPC has a very large broad slight risk well into much of Oklahoma. CSU more confident in severe weather back up into the north central U.S., mainly I would say Iowa, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin on here, western Wisconsin. And then you can see Tuesday, the main day, CSU painting Iowa. And Wednesday, again, dual risk. Wednesday could go either way. Either we'll see one big risk like the SPC has from here to here, or we'll see kind of a dual risk where we have one risk up here and one risk down here. So, yeah, I want to go back to the GFS on Monday, though. Monday's going to come down to that. Yeah, because see the 06ZG... What? The 06Z GFS. I was going to say the ensemble model for some reason. The 06Z GFS initiates. The 12Z GFS doesn't. 06Z initiates, 12Z doesn't. Main reason is the trough. 500 millibar wind speed, 00Z Tuesday, 8 p.m. Monday night, Eastern time. Look at that belt of flow on the 06Z and the 12Z. It's almost gone. You've got a little bit back there into southern Kansas, but that is the difference between a blue sky bust and a severe weather outbreak. Notice I didn't say tornado outbreak because you could still have a lacklustering amount of wind shear, which 06Z GFS actually doesn't have that being the case and does print a pretty dang good severe threat. on that dry line in Kansas and Oklahoma. So, yeah, a lot of uncertainty. A lot of uncertainty. That's why I've been relatively just waiting. I did that one video on this upcoming severe weather stretch like 3 days ago. And I've just been waiting because there's just not a lot of confidence. I wasn't going to do a live stream today, but I'm like, nah, I got to get it on here and at least just talk to you guys, let you know what we're watching, just in case you're not paying attention to the SPC yourself. So, we'll see. But the general overview here, again, today, if a supercell can fire, get itself semi-discrete, southern Nebraska, northern Kansas, we could see large hail up to 2.53 inches in diameter, 70-mile-an-hour winds, and a tornado or two, possibly even a brief, strong tornado, if a supercell can be discrete. If not, we'll see a couple clustered supercells produce 60-mile-an-hour winds, 1-inch hail, and maybe a brief tornado. But really, the strong tornado threat, the 70-plus-mile-an-hour wind threat, and the 2-plus-inch hail threat all comes down to if supercells fire in Kansas and Nebraska. And I want to see that from the new HRRR here. We'll go to the 19Z, a little bit older. You could see a brief instance where it might be semi-discrete enough to produce very large hail and a brief tornado, maybe 60 to 70-mile-an-hour winds, but then it immediately clusters up and goes into a slop fest. So it all comes down to storm mode today. It all comes down to storm mode today. On if we see very significant severe weather with an isolated discrete supercell, or if we just get a clustered slop fest. And then as we go into tomorrow, Friday, kind of a break day. There is the risk for a microburst to occur with damaging winds up to 60 miles per hour in northern Oklahoma, southern Kansas. Isolated hail also could approach 1 inch in diameter if a storm becomes discrete enough. I wouldn't fully rule out a tornado tomorrow, but it is definitely very, very, very low. Very low. Lower than today. Saturday, depending on the trough, I think we'll have a widespread area for the chance of 60-mile-an-hour winds and 1-inch hail here across Texas and eastern New Mexico. That could shift a little east or west depending on the trough. But the main threat here will definitely be large hail of 1 to 2 inches in diameter. Wouldn't fully rule out a tornado on Saturday either, but definitely not a big problem for tornadoes on Saturday. Sunday, that's your first big conditional day. Again, we'll be watching this shortwave trough up here into Minnesota. That could initiate severe storms in this area. Maybe a little bit further east if that speeds up. However, there could be a problem with capping up there. If capping holds, literally nothing could fire and we won't have severe weather up there. And because of that capping issue, the SPC hasn't extended that 15% that far north just yet. But the main area to watch on Sunday is probably going to be that conditional dry line threat here in Kansas and western Oklahoma, where if storms fire, they'll fire cluster to semi-discrete, very large hail, significant damaging winds, and even a few tornadoes, maybe a strong tornado, if a supercell can become semi-discrete to discrete on that dry line Sunday afternoon, evening, closer to sunset, because those temperatures will come down and thus storms won't be as elevated. Then we go into Monday. Monday, again, that conditional, really the same conditional all hazards threat, but maybe just extending a little bit further north than Sunday, pretty much over the same area there for Monday. And again, it is conditional. It depends. If we don't have a lot of forcing, Monday could be a blue sky bust. If we do, it could be a very significant day for severe weather across the area I've circled there. Then we go into Tuesday, and that is probably going to be our big day, really regardless of our trough on how fast it is. If it's very fast, we're looking at an upper echelon, or rather, if it's very fast, we're looking at a slight risk to enhanced type of event across our open warm sector, which is going to be roughly in this area here. Roughly in there for Tuesday. If that trough slows down a little bit more and it looks more like closer to what the Canadian has here, let me get to the right Canadian, slows down a little bit and it looks more like what the Canadian has here, where it's a little bit more amplified and slower, that would shift the threat a little bit further to the north more over this area here, so not as far south. However, it would greatly increase the risk for severe weather because that trough is very well amplified. And in this case, we could see a upper echelon severe weather event. Again, potentially that moderate category, potentially even into that moderate category. So the Tuesday should be the biggest day, even if that trough is fast and wipes the warm sector a little bit too fast. Tuesday should still be a big day, probably the biggest day. Oh, and then Wednesday, we do have a risk for severe weather on Wednesday, but that is pretty uncertain right now. The two main areas to watch is going to be Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma. And then the other area is going to be in the New England states, believe it or not. Those are the two main areas I'm watching for Wednesday. But the SPC actually highlighted somewhere generally in this region in here for Wednesday. So we'll see. Wednesday could be a much more widespread severe weather threat, or it could be those two locations I've circled in black on your screen now. Either way, whether the SPC's risk is correct or not, the severe weather on Wednesday should relatively be limited to damaging winds and isolated large hail. A tornado is going to be possible on Wednesday, but even if it is a more widespread risk like what the 06Z GFS has and what the SPC has that large risk out for, it's not going to be an upper echelon tornado environment to the point where I think we'll see a few tornadoes. I think maybe a tornado or two will be possible on Wednesday, regardless of if the severe threat is as widespread as what the SPC is saying. So basically, a mid-tier event for Wednesday, and it could be focused over Texas and the New England states, or it could be focused over a large chunk of what you see circled here. So it's just a matter of if that mid-tier event is over a widespread area or over two separate regions. But either way, I don't see Wednesday being a big problem for severe weather. But again, severe weather will likely still occur. Let's see. Alrighty. Let's go see. Up here, we got a little storm firing in north central Kansas. We'll check that new HRRR, see what it has here. Yeah, so like I said, today, main threat is wind and hail if storms can stay discrete. And if they're not discrete, that threat is going to be lower but still present. Tornado threat is completely dependent on if storms are discrete. I mean, if we end up with this clustered mess, I doubt something like this is going to be able to produce a tornado. Alrighty, that is going to be it from me. Went a little bit over because there was a lot to talk about, and I didn't want to rush through it too quickly. What is tomorrow's Friday? I probably won't have a live stream tomorrow. I might, if like a lot of confidence in severe weather increases, I might have a live stream tomorrow, but I'm not going to plan on it. And then we'll plan a live stream Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and probably Wednesday. So we'll probably have 4 to 5 days straight where we do live streams. And not all of those are probably going to end up being coverage live streams. I'm sure Saturday's probably is going to be an hour or two. Sunday could be an hour or two. Monday, if storms do fire, we could be looking at a big live stream on Monday. And then Tuesday, we'll probably be looking at a big live stream. Wednesday, we'll probably be looking at a briefing. So we'll see. Some days, maybe an hour or two. Other days, we may be live for 4 or 5 plus hours. It just depends on how those storms look and how significant they will be. But regardless, a lot of content this weekend into early next week. And thankfully, I don't have anything planned. So, you know, if things do really pop off, I'll be here for multiple hours. But like I said, I'm trying to choose those live streams carefully. Whereas last year, even if it was like a slight risk and I thought something would be significant, I'd be live for like 6 to 10 hours on a random significant slight risk. And then sometimes literally it wouldn't even perform even close to expectation. Whereas this year I'm choosing that more carefully. That way I'm not just sitting here yapping with 2 severes. So, yeah, real quick, I mean, I've got 1 minute, so might as well just go look at that very, very quick here. We're not done after this by any means. So, our stretch, this first stretch of severe weather ends Wednesday, which is the 15th. So if you mark that, the 15th, that is right here. That's when our first stretch ends. But right after that first stretch, we go into another stretch. So we might get a day break. We might get a day break, but then we're going to go right back into a continuation of that active severe weather pattern, just like I mentioned in the video earlier this week. It still looks like that is true, to where we will continue we're probably going to go into May continuing this very active pattern for severe weather. And then at some point in May, I'm sure we'll get some type of Omega block that absolutely stops our severe weather season. But who knows? May still should be below average. But that may not be the case. There's a big difference, though, between below average and inactive. April and May, I still think will be below average, or average to below average for April and May. But we're still going to get plenty of tornadoes in both of those months. And all it takes is one of these days to be a big day. I mean, we've seen it before. We've seen days in April and March that have produced over 100 tornadoes. And that could very easily throw us into the well above average category for April or May. So all it takes is one big day, and your outlook for tornado season is completely wrong. So I appreciate everybody for being here. Glad talking to you guys again. Like I said, 50-50 on a live stream tomorrow. If a lot of things change, I'll be live. If not, then I will definitely see you Saturday, regardless, live stream Saturday, at least just to update you guys on things. Tomorrow, I'll just see. But I appreciate you for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button on this live stream. It helps support the channel. Share the stream and the channel with your family and friends, social media. It's really appreciated. And yeah, consider hitting that subscribe button so you know when I go live tomorrow or when I make a video. And I will catch you guys in the next live stream or video that I do. Thank you, mods, for mod chat once again. Stay safe. Watch the severe weather. Have a great rest of your Thursday night. Goodbye. Stay safe, watch the severe weather, and I'll see you guys in the next live stream or video that I do. Thank you, mods, for mod and chat. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Goodbye.